every single week, Saturdays at 10 a.m., Sundays at 12 p.m. Tune in to Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, hosted by our friend James Farr. I called James, said, James, when I get off the air, I want to come out earlier because I want you to take me through these neighborhoods. I want to get out of the car and walk through these streets. And all I can tell you, if you're listening and watching across the country, is that the pictures do not do justice to the devastation. When you get out of the car and you walk it, you don't just see it, but you feel it. I was heartened by the fact that I saw utility trucks and folks in hazmat suits.
To answer your question, I still think that we are in a space of relief right now. And as we toured the community and we understand that there is still a great need for resources as people are settling into a new normal and a new settlement, it may be a little premature for recovery, but in this moment, what I see in this audience is resilience. I see the roots of Altadena. I see the reunions coming. I see the rebuilding coming. I see hope, and I see optimism.
Well, optimism is a good thing, and one of the things I've been most inspired by is the spirit of the people of Altadena and the helping of one another, and the spirit of we're here for the long haul. We're not going anywhere. I am really intrigued by what's happening and what's going to be happening for people in terms of their rights and their ability to rebuild. And we're joined by a partner in Quinn Emanuel, the partner in the Los Angeles office. She focuses on class action, litigation, internal investigations, data privacy and security, and intellectual property, but also complex business disputes and, interestingly, environmental litigation. Attorney Crystal Nix-Hines, welcome. So my question for you has to do with, anyone who's spending any time in Altadena, Pasadena area right now knows that there's, a lot of people getting ready to bring cases. They perhaps are running into many lawyers. We know that Quinn Emanuel is on the list of the top 100 largest law firms in the entire country. That's right now representing wildfire victims. With all of these legal minds and competition in the area and the prominence of Quinn Emanuel, why are you here now? Why are you in this fight?
Well, thank you very much, Dominique. And first, I just want to begin by saying how sorry we are for those of you who have been impacted by the fires. You know that you've lost not only the devastation of your homes, but all the time it takes to deal with FEMA and insurance and finding temporary housing. So our hearts really go out for you. How many here are actually impacted by the fires? Quite a bit. So look, we're really sorry, and one of the reasons why we decided that we wanted to defend and represent wildfire victims in lawsuits is, this is our backyard, right? We were founded in the 1980s here in Los Angeles. The founder of our firm lives in Pasadena. A number of our lawyers were impacted by the fires as well. One of our members of our team has lost his third home now. And so this is personal to us. And we want to make sure that you have the best representation possible. And we're bringing the same resources and focus that we do to our Fortune 500 companies, because we want to make sure that Southern California Edison, which is the defendant in the Eaton fire, is held accountable for what could have been prevented and what should have been prevented had they followed their own policies. And turned off the power when they should have, when the winds reached over 60 miles per hour. So it's a privilege to really represent fire victims. I see some of our clients here in the room, and hearing your stories and all that you're going through, we want to make sure that you have the best representation possible. So that's why we're here.
Our next panelist is a 50-year resident of Altadena. He's one of the organizers behind the Pasadena Community Coalition, a Black Panther. Last time I talked to him, I had made the mistake of saying former Black Panther, but apparently once a Panther, always a Panther. And he sadly lost his home entirely during this fire, this disaster. Martin Gordon, welcome.
Thank you.
I know because we saw a show of hands by how many folks in this room are impacted, that this is not a new story for most of you, but for those listening in other states and other counties, if you could just share a little bit of your story and where you are now.
Ooh. Can you hear me? Oh, there you go. I'll try to do it very quickly because I'm not here to share this story. Really, I want to talk about something more important, is where we're going.
Yes.
But I do want people to know that I was sitting home in my house late at night. My wife was gone. I was asleep. She woke me up. She said, "Hey, the fire's coming." I said, "Yeah, the fire's always coming. I'm not worried about it." She said, "No, I'm looking at the ring." She was in Sacramento taking care of her mom. She said, "I'm looking at the ring, and I can see the fire from the ring." So I laughed. I said, "Okay, honey, listen, yeah, I'm drinking some cognac. Yeah. So I'm going to stop." She said, "No, go and look at the front door." So I got up. I went to the front door. I looked out the window, and I kind of saw something like one of those fire movies. I went, not that far. I opened the door, looked across the street, and the fire was 3 football fields away from me. I went, oh, my God. I told my wife, "I'm getting the dog." She said my son was coming to get me. I said, "Okay, that's good." Right in the middle of the conversation, the phone went off and my lights went out. I knew I was getting ready to die. I went, this is just coming too fast. Fortunately, my son got there in time. We pulled our stuff together. We got the heck out of there. And I went down to the bottom of the hill. I went, oh no. I took the oldest car we have, mine. I loved it. And I said to an officer, I got to go back up there and get my wife's car or I'm going to die anyway. And so he said, I'm sorry, sir. You won't be going up there. Your house is gone. You better be glad you left when you did. So I'm happy to be alive. But more importantly, I feel like all of you people out here who have lost your homes and understand this. Everybody tells us what we need. Stop it. Ask us what we need and give us what we ask for. I don't need 20 more pairs of shoes. I don't need 20 more coats. I don't have a house to live in. If you made $100 million to give to us, give it to us to build back our homes. I need $500,000 to help build back my home, bring the money home to the people. Otherwise, what did you collect it for? Did you collect it for yourself or did you collect it for Altadena? And I'm talking about these black people who actually have the highest rate of home ownership in the country and generational wealth. Bring black Pasadena back. I'm done.
Yes, indeed. Next panelist following that is a housing developer and a builder. Got a Master of Real Estate Development, comes in handy right now, from USC, and a Bachelor's in Urban and Regional Planning from Pomona, as a California licensed contractor, housing developer, and builder. Joel Bryant, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dominique.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say part of what's concerning all of us is exactly what piggybacks off what Martin Gordon just said, is we all want to build Altadena back blacker. We all want people to have their homes back. But I know it's a tough choice given, the insurance considerations, the pollution and toxins in the ground and even in the homes that did not burn, all of these different considerations. How do you see, the big picture of rebuilding at this point?
That is a big question.
Yeah.
Before we get into what I do today, I grew up in Altadena. Grew up around the intersection of Lincoln Altadena Drive. My wife grew up on Olive and Loma Alta. I live in Pasadena now. We still have a property up in Altadena which did burn. We have family members whose homes were burned. And I think we're all still traumatized in a way. But getting to the point of the real estate and the build back, like I tell people, January 7th, if you recall that day, it was a clear, windy, really windy day. 24 hours later, 6,600 homes in Altadena were gone. So what you immediately do after you've come down from the trauma of what just happened, and again, my wife gets text messages from her cousin at 3:13 in the morning who lost her home. She lives in Long Beach now, but she's just thinking about building back, but she can't sleep. Every homeowner, those who have decided that they want to rebuild, because studies show 1/3 of the folks will sell and move, and that's a concern too. But those that want to build back need to immediately become, they have to become like mini developers. They have to manage money. They have to manage their insurance policy along with the lender that puts controls on them. They have to manage the design of the home. And then they have to manage the construction of the home. And that's not a decision that, when you renovate a kitchen, you might take 5 years to do so. Here, in one night, it's all gone, and you have to immediately pivot and become this self-contained business entity. And there's so much to unpack here, but what I would say is each household needs to operate as a business entity with all the emotion that's in it, but set up an account which would allow them to manage the insurance proceeds, hire an architect you can trust, hire a contractor you can trust. That's the hard part. I have a friend at the Altadena Chamber told me after the fire, 50 contractors have joined the Altadena Chamber of Commerce. None of them are from this community. And as Martin alluded to, we have a community where the black home ownership is something that we've always known, but the world is finding out how special this place is. So I could go on about this matter, but I'm just grateful to be here and partake in this conversation.
And
Thank
you
you
have been
for that.
building homes, including for homeless and for affordable housing, for many years.
I built affordable housing in Pasadena in this neighborhood, and
out for those resources, you have somewhere to go. So that's kind of what I see, and just some of the work that we're doing is just trying to elevate you guys really, because it's your voice and what you need matters. So I just want there to be a space for you to come so we can elevate it.
Yeah. Do you think youth voices are being heard in this conversation?
I think youth voices are being heard. I mean, I got to give a shout out to Brandon Lamar. He's been on the ground since all of it. I think he's been a big voice of the youth. I think he's inspired a lot of youth. I think that more of us need to step up because we have the capacity and we have the ability to be in different spaces, from social media to, sitting down with elders and doing the work. So I think that we need to step up a bit more, but I do think we're present, and I also think we have to respect each other's grief. Like, we're all going through this collectively, so having conversations with each other is equally as important, just talking.
I want to go back to James Farr, because I know you've been tracking this, and Martin said something that touched a nerve. I could feel it in the room, but I also know from my own following of what's happening here, which is a lot of people are asking, where is the money? A lot of nonprofits and individuals have done fundraisers, from GoFundMe's to donate to my organization. Who's tracking that? How do we know what's actually benefiting the people of Altadena and what's benefiting a general organization or lining somebody's pockets?
That's an excellent question, Dominique. And first, we have to understand that right now we are in the midst of a disaster economy. There is disaster and predatory capitalism at play right now. There is an ecosystem that is evolving, existing, and excluding people like Martin. So to answer your question, I don't have the money, Dominique. I can tell you that right now.
I'd have got it from you.
Yeah, yes. But ultimately, we'll know next year when 990 forms are filed. And then that will disclose fully, transparently. And for those of you who don't know what a 990 form, that's an IRS document that nonprofits are required to file. And it's a public document. So when you look at some of the larger collection plates, and they've initially announced that they've seeded organizations, they don't necessarily say how much they've seeded it with, that will come out. The simplest answer to your question, Dominique, is it's not making it to the Martin Gordons, to the many others here in this room who need, as I said, we were talking about recovery, right? This is a relief space. Martin and many others need relief. That's it. That's all.
Can I just add to that? Because I
Yeah,
sit on the board
yeah,
of the
please.
California Community Foundation, which, as you know, has raised over $80
Attorney
million.
Crystal Nix-Hines.
And we have been getting it out the door to organizations. The majority of it has gone to organizations. Now, how they've been serving the community, I'm not sure. And obviously, there needs to be accountability there. But there are a lot of organizations that have been serviced. So I encourage you to go on the CCF website and see what organizations have gotten grants, and then knock on their doors.
If you're going to bring, I'm sorry, Dominique, I wasn't going to go here, but Pasadena Community Foundation, I read where there was $70 million given to the Pasadena Community Foundation, that $20 million went to nonprofits. I looked on the website at the nonprofits. Most of the nonprofits I never heard of. Kind of like the people coming into town saying they want to be on the realtor board now because there's stuff to be done. I didn't know half of them, none of them actually. Then they said that about 20 million, and there was 50 million more dollars that the Pasadena Community Foundation has, and they started a new organization in order to put that money out into the community. I have never heard of a nonprofit saying, I got money, now I'm going to start a new nonprofit to put money out. This is an Occam's razor issue. You know what Occam's razor is? It is the simplest method is probably the right one. find out what we need. If I need $5 million, I'm sorry, I need $20 million. If I need $1 million or $500,000 for my home, put that money up there for me, have me draw it down, make me accountable that I put the money into doing my house, and then if I don't use the $500,000, take the rest of it back. This
Respectfully-
is simple.
But respectfully, Mr. Gordon, I mean, isn't it possible that a nonprofit from another jurisdiction may have some expertise or may be able to come in and legitimately help? Are we going to say that we're automatically disqualifying someone
Oh, no,
that's
no,
not
no.
native to
This goes
Altadena?
further than that, because those people, I'm glad to say, some of those are doing some good work and some are not. But I'm not concerned about that nonprofit group. All you nonprofits out there, please give us clothes, food, help. We really need mental health. I love them. I'm saying there's $50 million more. Here's where I'm looking at.
Yeah.
And that I do not want to go to somebody inside or outside. I want it to go to, who's these people who said they got affected by the fire? Raise your hand. I want it to go to us.
Yeah, okay, well, and we'll follow up more about how that works or doesn't work because, you know, what resources people get is going to be key to whether or not you can rebuild, right? I mean, that sounds dumb and obvious, but it's true.
Absolutely.
And so I want to go back to Joel here because one of the things that I'm hearing is if folks have insurance, they may be underinsured. If they have had that house passed on to them, they may not have insurance at all, in which case I think it's like 50 grand you get from FEMA, which is not going to build anything in LA County. And so, and even if you're fully insured, because of many factors, including tariffs, inflation, and the demand, it's going to cost more to rebuild than it would have 6 months ago. So how do we fill that gap between what people are getting and, you know, and what they actually need to rebuild? I don't think nonprofits are authorized to just say, oh, you need 100 grand and you need 100 grand. It'd be great if they were, but I don't think that's what's going to happen. So how do we bridge that gap? I mean, and yes, I will also, you know, address this to some others on the panel as well.
Earlier, I mentioned that 6,600 homes burn, and when you do quick math of what the costs of building a 2,000 square foot house cost, it's over $6 billion to build 6,600 homes at the average cost of building. And breaking that down for the people that I'm helping go through this process, it's interesting. Everyone's journey is different. Everyone's insurance policy is different. I'm talking with family and friends who both are insured by Mercury Insurance, but they have two different experiences and journeys. And so the challenge is to make, and there's others in this room that I know are greater experts than, I'm not an expert by any means in insurance, but I've been in the room long enough to know that there are limits you have in your policy. And even when you max out those limits, you know, there's the dwelling, there's debris removal, there's code upgrades. Even with the sum of those buckets of money, it is a bit short of where housing costs or construction costs are today. And you're right, there's macroeconomic conditions like tariffs. We keep hearing this in and out of tariffs coming from the person in DC, not even going to name him, but these tariffs, they're on, they're off, but most of the lumber comes from Canada that I've purchased. Take drywall and some of the lime and cement that goes into concrete. 74% of that comes from Mexico. So we have macroeconomic conditions that are going to impact the material cost of labor. We have a labor market, for example, drywall and plaster, half that labor force is undocumented. If you have undocumented workers who are fearful of what may happen, that may tamper down that labor pool. What happens when the supply of anything gets short in a market economy? The price goes up. So you're battling against these things. And you really can't pin a contractor down and do a fixed price contract to say you must build it at this price, because no contractor is going to agree that regardless of where prices go, they will build it for you. But the good, honest ones will figure it out. along with the homeowner. Again, each homeowner who's building back needs to be a mini developer. Imagine being the general manager of an NFL team. Your contractor is the head coach, but you're the GM. So you got to think that way.
Well, I want to toss it back to former U.S. Ambassador to UNESCO, so I should say Ambassador Attorney Crystal Nix-Hines. When you talk about this gap between what people are going to get from their insurance or from FEMA or whatever resources they have and what it would actually cost to rebuild, I want to put it in the context of the litigation that is potentially happening. Given the options that people have to fully recover what they had, to rebuild at the level where they were before or better, and between insurance, the FEMA, the loans, the grants, why do you think survivors of the Altadena Eaton fire should pursue litigation, if you do think that?
Well, it's always a personal choice whether to sue or not, but I would say that litigation plays an important piece for what we're talking about here today, because if you sue Southern California Edison, our goal is to collect the difference between what you've gotten from insurance and what it's going to cost to rebuild. There is that gap, that we've been talking about, and that's where the litigation comes in, because we want to make people fully whole, and that's what we would be pursuing, in your cases. And these are individual cases. They're not class actions. We prepare each case separately, file a complaint on your behalf, and then we will work with you, as our clients know, in a lot of detail to bring all the information that we need to present before a mediator. Most of these cases are consolidated before a mediator. They don't go to trial for the most part. And we want to present the most compelling narrative that we possibly can. If you've lost valuable treasures, you've got important childhood photographs, you've got valuable jewelry, you've lost important artwork, whatever it is that makes your story. In some cases, people have actually lost, relatives, right? Elderly people who barely got out with their lives. Like, all of that we need to tell in a very detailed, painstaking way before a mediator. And when you're thinking about, a firm, you want to make sure that it's a firm that's actually tried cases. We win at 86% of our cases firm-wide. Because, as you know, there's been every Tom, Dick, and Harry knocking on doors. Some of them are not from the state, 1 or 2 man shops. Some of them never presented, gone to court, right? So you really want to do your due diligence, take your time. If anyone makes you feel like you got to sign, you got to sign. Definitely that's a red flag. You want to make sure that you're comfortable with the counsel you choose. But it's really important to me, and that's why we're doing a lot of these outreaches, that our community exercises its legal rights. I'm really, concerned about, there's been some private equity coming in, offering cash deals under value, right? And, it would be a real shame if Altadena loses the character that it has. It's a really incredible community with a rich history. We talked about generational wealth. All of that is really important to preserve. And the best way to do that is to pursue your legal rights so that you get the resources that you need to rebuild.
It seems like what I'm following in the news, that more and more condemning evidence about the actions or lack of actions by Edison is coming out. It seems to me they even last week admitted that one of their dead lines may have caused this. For them to admit that in the LA Times, I'm trying to figure out why you wouldn't sue.
No, absolutely. I mean, the case in Eaton is really strong, and they did not pursue their own policies, which was to de-energize power if winds hit a certain level. And, we have investigators. We're going to be building a liability and damages case. But the evidence is pretty overwhelming that they're going to be liable. And so we all need to collectively hold them accountable so that we can force changes. They earned $15 million, and they only spent 10% of it on fire mitigation and recovery, right? And so we as a people and as a community need to say that's not right. You got to do the measures that will keep fires from happening. And if there are winds, you got to take measures to make sure that we don't experience the kind of fires that we've experienced in Altadena ever again.
Yeah, seems like that's an
important. Can I ask you a question about that?
Go ahead.
I just want to make sure, I know this is probably true, is that the other thing you will recover for us, like I'm on your, recover for us, is the loss of use of our homes and the value that is to us, which is of a great magnitude. Am I correct there?
Yes, that's right, and also the emotional piece, right? All the emotional suffering that people have gone through, that all has a value as well that needs to be compensated for.
Yep. It seems like that could be a key to that gap, right? If you burned it down, you have to build it back up, or at least be part of building it back up. Let's talk about a little bit more about that emotional piece. I think it's been underreported, and I was reading about a county mental health facility that was supposed to open here. James, you were writing about that is now in limbo. Seems like terrible timing to have a county public health facility that was supposed to go up for Altadena, Pasadena to be in limbo. What's happening with that? What do you know about what resources are available, particularly for young people, but for everybody?
Well, Dominique, at some point, I've long remarked that our electeds one day will actually have to show up and do their job. And a little over a year ago, there was a proposed partnership between the County of Los Angeles, the City of Pasadena, to convert the Kaiser location over on Lake into a mental health facility that would have been able to better service this community. That was last year, right? So had they been prepared, no one could have anticipated what was going to happen January 7th, but that would have been another example of a resource where it wouldn't have been reactionary. And in just a little bit over an hour, our county supervisor, Barger, and our council are meeting right now to discuss a myriad of things, but one of them is this actual facility. So wouldn't it have been nice if they had actually done their job a year ago?
Yeah, and just to be clear, you don't see electeds up on the panel. It's not because we didn't think of it. We will more than likely do another town hall meeting with them, but we want to start with the people and what's needed in terms of right now, rebuild, support, what you need. There's plenty of time for electeds. You and I have talked about this on the show. I don't know if anyone else wants to comment on it, but I feel like...
well, I think it's important, Dominique, to point out that the 5th District is one of the second densely populated African-American community in Los Angeles County. And so there's a large concentration of us here.
And it's represented by the only Republican on the LA County Board of Supervisors. Not that we automatically hate Republicans, but I do feel like there has been a pass given.
I don't know if there's been a pass
Okay.
given.
So
we
you
will
feel
call
like
her in, though.
So you think there's been full accountability and transparency
No,
by elected officials representing this area?
I think she's ducking the invitation to come on Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, and talking about it. That's what I think.
To be continued. To be continued. And the rebuilding, everyone tells me the recovery from a disaster of this magnitude is in phases, right? There's, your immediate, get us food, water, clothing, then there's rebuilding, then there's a long-term picture. And I want to go to you, Ash, because I think those of us who don't live here, but who it's our job to shine a spotlight, are trying to get a feel for where you are and how we can fit into that picture to be supporters but not exploiters.
I would just, as much as you can, try to follow along, listen to, of course, James Farr, tap in online, connect with your community that you know is out here, to follow along with what's going on and ask people how they're doing, like it's okay, like tap in, like really, we need to have these conversations in order to get to the next level. And everyone wants to talk about Altadena is not for sale, but there is so much rebuilding conversation and there's so many of the other conversations that are happening, yet we're not talking to the people that are not ready to rebuild yet. We need to bring them with us and we need to kind of like hold the rebuilding until everybody is ready to at least have these conversations, or we're gonna rebuild without them just by default. So I think it's really important to continue to remember and make space and connect with your community as much as possible.
And a lot of those resources are on Instagram, right? I know you're there at Altadena Rising, Neighborhood Servants with you. They're there.
Yeah.
Conversation Live. Anybody else?
I wanted to say earlier, you mentioned some mental health resources. So there's Connected to Rise. They're doing an event that's coming up with Jennifer Kerr. She's a Black therapist. She's amazing. And then we have Dina Hills, who's located in Paseo. They have a location. They also have a shop where you can go get anything that you need. And they have consistent weekly just events all the time for mental health services.
And we've put together a resource list as well. We have packets outside. One of our team members, Sydney Martin, who's here, has put together a really comprehensive list of all sorts of resources, so I encourage you to pick up an envelope. We also have great little hats that you can pick. But we want to make sure that people are equipped with all the resources that you may need, from debris removal to resources to get supplies, public adjusters if you need somebody to advocate for you on behalf of insurance, a whole list, mental health, lots of things. So encourage you to pick that up.
And your website?
There's packets outside at a table as you're exiting.
So just look up Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers if you're in another part of town. If you're staying with your family in Palmdale and watching us on the stream. Martin, Gordon, I want to ask you and anyone else who wants to weigh in on this. We talk a lot about rebuilding and, not judging people if they want to leave or whatever the options are. I don't think we had a great conversation on my show last week with Michelle White from Neighborhood Servants. I think renters are getting left out of the conversation, and they are also stakeholders in this area. It shouldn't be left out just because they don't own a house.
I'm so glad you said that, because there are so many renters who have been put out on the street, and where the owners have the ability to actually build back. And instead of doing that, the avaricious businessman does this. The house is burnt down, you get out, I'm gonna refurbish it, and I'm gonna raise the rent and put somebody else in it. And I understand they're talking about, some of the people who should be here to help us. There's some legislation to try to stop some of this stuff, but the bottom line is that they have nowhere to go. They have no insurance. They have no insurance whatsoever. If they had a little bit of insurance on their rental property, that means they're just out of luck. And what they're going to get from FEMA, well, you didn't lose your house. Guys, these people are really having a difficult time. Not to say that we aren't too, but we have some resources we can get to. But I think the rental population is really in dire need. And I haven't figured out yet. The coalition is looking at this, along with people like Ash and lots of the nonprofits we're talking about. We have to, one of the things we don't do is we're in these pockets, and we don't really get all these people together to work at that, because we really got to look at what's happening to some of these people, because I had someone call me at the Pasadena Community Coalition say, I'm on the street because of just this issue. Back to us that want to build back, I found so many people in Altadena, most people in Altadena, especially in the Black community, were underinsured. You have to be insured, but you get underinsured. So you don't have the money to build back. So we're looking to FEMA. FEMA can only do so much. All this other money that's out there, we're looking to those people to say, if you're going to help us, bring that money here so that we can become whole and build back. Some of the people, though, come to me and say, Martin, I can't wait. There's nothing I can do, and I'm going to sell my land. I went, please don't do that. There is a organization right now who's looking at buying land in that circumstance, and they bought one already for over $500,000, and they will save it, especially in the Black community, and sell it back to Black people again. Right on, because that's what we need to do.
Dominic.
So that's difficult.
Is that the Altadena Community Land Trust that you're talking about? or-
That's not it.
It's
Okay.
Green. It's
Her
Green
name
Line.
is. Her name is.
I'm pretty sure
Jasmine.
it's Green Line Housing. Yeah,
Jasmine.
with Jasmine.
Green Light
Jasmine
Housing.
Shepherd.
You want to
Green-
speak on that a little bit, Ash?
Green line.
Oh, I'm not the housing lane, but yes, I love Jasmine. She's great. She's doing great work. She's very passionate. She really cares about the community. She's one of those people that when you speak with her, it's like she gets it. So I would suggest anyone in that situation to really reach out. She's really accessible. She's at a lot of these fairs and has a great team that really want to figure out how do we keep homeowners here and safe and comfortable in order to be in the right positions to make the decisions that they need to make to move forward.
Yeah,
So-
And she put displaced people in homes.
Yes.
She
they have
put displaced people in homes.
Yeah.
Thank you, wherever you are, my dear. That's
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
And I think, you know, you were the one, Martin, that said we can't judge people if they decide to sell. If I'm 90 and it's going to take 5 years to rebuild my home, maybe I don't want to wait around, right? But it's good to know that there's other opportunities. Okay, getting to the near the top of the hour, James, can you give me the short version?
Absolutely. The most devastating part for me, Dominique, I've spoken with over 100 impacted folks who've lost their homes. Seniors are aging in place in this community, and the disorientation, the loss of space, the loss of a sense of safety has been one of the most hardest parts to sit and digest. So we have to prioritize our senior population first.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, well said. I want to go back to Attorney Crystal Nix Hines. You mentioned that there's a lot of attorneys around right now, just as there's a lot of architects and builders. What makes Quinn Emanuel stand out from all these other firms in this scenario that we're in right now?
Well, thank you. And first of all, just to pick up on what you said, we just filed a complaint in Palisades on behalf of a number of elderly seniors, and there's a provision in the law that allows seniors to have their cases expedited within a 4-month period. So we want to make sure that all seniors understand that you know, they can have their cases expedited. Obviously, you need to be ready to try it in a rapid period of time, but I don't want any seniors to feel hopeless or helpless. We all need to lift them up. And in terms of us, first of all, we care. I hope that's come through. We really care about this community, and we want to do everything possible to help. I had the privilege of being a law clerk to the late Supreme Court Justice Thurgood Marshall, and yes, yeah. And he always impressed upon all of us the importance of us doing all that we can and using all of our talents to work for justice. And if you see injustice, he always said, don't act like you don't see it, do something. And so that's what we want to do. We want to use our skills and our talents to help members of this community to be justly compensated for the devastation that you've suffered. And I think you'll see that we bring the same professionalism and intensity that we do for our corporate clients to our individual clients here that have been victimized by the wildfires. And we give an individual approach. We assign specific lawyers to each client who comes in the door. Jeff and I and some other partners oversee each case. We read through each complaint. We make sure that are able to present the most compelling case possible. We've been litigating wildfires since 2007. We've been involved in all of the biggest fires on the West Coast, so we bring that breadth of experience, and we want to use it to make sure that everyone here receives what they should.
Absolutely. This is our Altadena, Eaton Canyon 100 Days and Counting Town Hall, live from Pasadena. And I'm so thankful to see such a full room, so many people here. Give yourselves a round of applause just for really showing up for each other. I want to follow up on this idea that I started out with, talking about the testing of the ground, right, if you are going to rebuild. Again, there's been several articles this week talking about folks self-testing because they happen to be scientists that live in a house and they decided to go and see if the ground was safe. And there's these high levels of lead, right? The federal government is not testing every property. As a builder, what would you advise how would you advise a homeowner to proceed? You don't want to build back on a toxic site that's going to cause damage to your family.
True, Dominique. I mean, it's from these fires, there's lead, there's asbestos, there's benzene, and a plethora of other toxins that I can't even pronounce. But with respect to the people that I'm working with, I have connected them with a company that can do independent testing. If they so choose, I recommend they do. The county does have different monitoring stations around town where they're going to monitor the air, the water, and the soil. But for a cost of $4,000 to do the testing, roughly, I think it could give you some assurance. Perhaps it will show results that don't make you comfortable, but I think it's still early. I haven't seen the results of any soil testing, but as was alluded to, Altadena, this is an eclectic community. Everybody, all type of folks here. There were and are a lot of scientists and people who work at JPL and Caltech.
Caltech, right.
And some of them have posted that they've done their own testing, and the results have come back at a level that's not acceptable to, to human activity. The environment always has toxins, but at a certain point, it's not healthy. And so it's still early. I do think that each person for an amount of $4,000, again, roughly, should perhaps do their own testing to give themselves some comfort.
And then if it comes back crazy, you're going to have to look
You
at
have to make another
whatever
decision.
the costs are to,
Yep.
to mitigate that.
But I'm just hopeful that some of the electeds and some of the other sources of funding could assist in this effort to get this community back. This fire is devastating. It's overwhelming.
Yeah. Martin Gordon, you're a longtime activist. What's your call to action for activists, not just in Altadena, but throughout the region and throughout the country who want to be in it for the long haul, who want to be solid partners to this community, this beloved community?
Get to your elected officials. Believe it or not, we are putting some pressure on our elected officials and to the nonprofits too. We have to, if you're an activist, get to the people who have the money. I'm talking about get in front of their businesses, write them letters, talk to your congressman, talk to your person, and tell them that this is what we need. And us in this community, we'll write it down on a piece of paper for you. It's that easy. And say, these are the things that we need. And when we put it out there, let's get to the people. And I ain't talking about a guy upstairs there, in Washington, D.C. He ain't going to do nothing for us. But the rest of these people in our communities that are accountable to us, we have to make them accountable by showing that we will act. This is war. Don't make no mistake about it. This is war. Go up to Altadena and look. It looks like Vietnam. This is war. And so in war, you must prepare. If you want peace, you must prepare for war. So we must prepare to get on those people that have the money and start to put the pressure on them to actually do what's needed for us to thrive and survive and build back Altadena better, build back Altadena black.
Ash, yes, go ahead.
Sorry, to also add on to building Altadena back and Greenland Foundation, she does have a building in Glendale right now with units where she's trying to get homeowners to that are struggling to move in there. She will cover the portion of the rent that you're not able to cover. So they're trying to do whatever it is possible to get folks housed in order to do what's next. So if you are in that position, please reach out to Greenline Housing because they're currently moving people in there now and are doing everything they can to make it possible for you to stay here.
Ash, I have a follow-up question for you. We're talking a lot about the challenges. What is the most inspiring thing that you've seen or experienced in this whole disaster process?
I love this question. The spirit of Altadena and the love of the community and the way that we have come together and just look at the room and everywhere that we go in our hearts is so raw and it's so present in everything that we do. We obviously just went through something crazy, like the conversations that I'm having with long-term recovery wild survivors. It's what? It's wild, but I hope that through this tragedy, that the way that we build back, and I know we have Pastor Kernan here, we have Beauty to Ashes, and there's so many leaders that have stepped up that are just so ready to help and to love and to be here. So for anyone that is nervous to reach out and ask for help, just know there's so much of a community here that is willing and ready and wants to elevate and help you and love on you to the end.
Can I make a shout out to someone? This is important because people ask, say, what can I do for you? And you tell them, and then they run to the high hills. Go ahead and laugh, because this is what happens. And I don't want to give the example, but this happens. But when I reached out to the community and all my friends and said, oh, help me this, help me there, Black Lives Matter called me within 3 days. Melina Abdullah, I love you. And they came to my office, the Pasadena Community Coalition. They cleared out all the old crazy clothes that were in there. They made sure we got ourselves together so we could give back to the community. They made sure that I was okay, got me a new cell phone, said, what else do you need? I need somebody to walk around with you and help you get it. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we need to do. You're an activist. Let that be your guide. Black Lives Matter. I asked them to come and help black people, and they came.
Yeah, absolutely. And I happen to know they handed out grants to a lot of folks, which is what you keep saying, folks need money. Attorney Crystal Nix Hines, and you're not the only one. What do you see, what is you say the most common mistake folks are making in trying to put their lives back together that you wish they knew better?
Look, I mean, it's a really hard time. You know, I think everyone up here on the panel has talked about the emotional toll and the feeling of being overwhelmed, and that's totally understandable. But I think it would be a mistake to let that cloud the possibility of pursuing your rights and standing up for what you believe in, and for pushing back on the wrongs that have occurred here. You know, so it's really important to take care of yourself, take care of your family, get reestablished. You were talking about the loss of sense of place. All of that is incredibly important. But we also have to keep a clarity of mind, right? We have to see the end game. And how am I going to get to be able to restore my family to the home that we had? And part of that is pursuing your legal rights. It doesn't cost anything. These are contingency cases. You don't have to put up any money up front. So I really encourage all of us to do it all. You know, it feels really hard, and it's easy maybe for me to say sitting from this vantage point, but we had to evacuate, and there go by the grace of God go we, right? It could have happened to us. So there are people here that, you know, are willing to help and want to help and support you and see you through. So I just hope that you don't look back and feel like, I wish I had done it, right? I wish I had decided to hold these people accountable.
Yeah, Joel, I want to ask you the same question as a housing developer and builder. What is a mistake or two that you see folks making that you might be able to share something with us now to help them not make it?
I think one thing that troubles me are those who have decided to sell their property because they're overwhelmed. And Martin mentioned earlier the seniors. The seniors need help. But that decision to just, I'm out of here, I don't want to deal with this, when you look at Altadena, you could perhaps understand why they feel that way. But, you know, give yourself some grace, clarity of mind, get in a quiet space and really try to think through this process. Because building infrastructure, building a building is a simple process. It's not complicated. But it does take money, it does take patience, it does take professionals. And it takes people you can trust.
And how do we find a contractor who's not crooked?
That's difficult. It really is. I can't sit up here. I wish I had an answer for how you can find the contractor that's going to do right by you. And I don't. It's, again, 6,600 properties. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and my concern, and again, as a Altadenan who went to Audubon and to John Muir, and
coming to the end of the hour here.
Okay, so I just want to say it's it concerns me, and I don't have the answer of how to find the right contractor that can just be. You got to vet them.
Yeah,
you got to vet them.
real quick.
Could I put a face on this for us real quick?
Yes, very quickly.
Across the street from me is a family. The grandmother lives there. The mother lives there. The kids live there. The grandkids live there. There are 3 houses there. They burned to the ground. They had limited insurance, and they're talking about selling. generational wealth there. They've been there for 40 some odd years. That's what we're talking about. We got to save those properties. Those are older people. They've been there for 30, 40 years. That's what we're talking about. We got to save our people.
Thank you. And just really quickly, James Farr, I know you've been tracking resources and which are constantly changing. This is helpful. Now it's gone. Where would you steer people in terms of folks that are still in need of whatever to keep track of what resources are still available and what are coming online?
I would check in with Neighborhood Servants. I would check in with Altadena Rising. I would check in with Dina Relief Drive. And then every Saturday at 10 a.m. and a replay on Sunday at noon, Conversation Live, Altadena Rising, the show of record where we are chronicling for the nation. And we will not let Altadena be forgotten. I'm so proud of you guys for showing up here today. And it's Dina Strong.
Yes, thank you so much.
Dina Strong.
I want to thank Ash Level, Joel Bryant, Martin Gordon, and attorney Crystal Nix Hines, and of course, James Farr. And welcome up my colleague, Dr. Nee Cordelai Corte. I'm leaving you in very capable hands. Let's give a big round of applause to our panel. And on behalf of KBLA Talk 1580, I'm Dominique DePrima, passing the mic to Dr. Nee Cordelai Corte, literally passing the mic. Please welcome him.
Thank you, Dominique DePrima. The panel could please come to the stage. Left to right, Veronica Jones, Brandon Lamar, Dr. Williams, Jeffrey Buzzell. And James Farr, please stay on the end. Stay on the end. You are. Good evening, everyone. You are listening to KBLA Talk 1580. I'm Dr. Nee Cordelai Corte, your host for this hour. Let me first start off by just saying I'm not my brother's keeper. I'm my brother. I'm not my sister's keeper. I am my sister. I think the panelists that we have assembled today understand that. They live that. And I'm really proud that KBLA Talk 1580 is here to have this very critical conversation. The Altadena Eaton fire, 100 days and counting. To the beloved community, we are here, we ain't going nowhere. While some of the other news outlets may have come and gone, we are committed to this. We are committed to you. And with that, I want to welcome our distinguished panel. Please raise your hand. Veronica Jones, president of the Altadena Historical Society. Brandon Lamar, the president of the NAACP Pasadena. Dr. Isha Williams, a licensed marriage and family therapist. And Jeffrey N. Buzzell with Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. Welcome. And you all know my colleague, James Farr. Oh, yeah. Have you met him? Yeah. Are you tapped in? Have you downloaded the KBLA app to listen to him live on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific? Conversations Live, Altadena Rising. That is our show of record, and we are so proud of him and proud of that show. And with that, I want to jump right on in, and I want to start with Dr. Williams. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, I'm sure you've heard a lot from your clients and the community. For folks in the room and those listening across the country, can you tell us what pains Altadenians the most 100 days after this tragedy of epic proportion, and what needs to happen in order for this community to heal?
Thank you for having me. I think one of the things that pains us most is that it happened, right? So as we look at what the lives that we built and the lives that we expected to carry on, I don't think any of us in this room watch it on TV, living in Altadena, would have imagined that when you left your house that you wouldn't be able to go back. Most of us left with very little, if anything. So as we think about what it means to rebuild, when we think about taking care of ourselves and our mental health and our physical health, those are the things that pain the most because we didn't expect to have to do it. So as we think about the rebuild and moving forward, then we sit in a place where we are really confused. The last panel talked about how do you find fairness in individuals that are going to support you and not cheat you in this process when we feel cheated because of the fire as a whole. So part of the way is to not do this alone. Ask for the support that you need, and if you can't ask for support, ask your neighbor how you can support them, and then show up in that way. So as we think about, right, our experiences, we have to learn to grieve it in the moment, because if we don't grieve it in the moment, it comes back over and over and over again. We think about a way through the experience and not get over it. Don't let it go. But think about your way through. What does it mean to walk through this experience and to do it in a way that is connected and collaborative with other individuals that have also experienced this?
Thank you for that. You know, it's not lost on me that 2 weeks after the Eaton fire, hundreds of folks gathered right here at Robinson Park Recreation Center for Dina Love Day. By show of hands, how many people were here when that happened? Raise your hand up high. And how many of you felt seen on that day? How many of you feel seen right now? For our folks that are listening, for folks who are streaming, most of the room's hands are not raised. Even after all of the investment that's gone into supporting folks in Altadena, folks aren't feeling the love. I have a feeling we have been here before. And with that, I want to transition to Veronica Jones, who is the president of the Altadena Historical Society. She's lived in this area for the last 60 years. And she said that she and her husband, Douglas, are among the black families who chose to raise children in West Altadena because it's the kind of place where neighbors look out for neighbors. Veronica, how do you recreate this sense of community 60 years in the making? Where do you start?
I don't think we have to recreate it. I think it's still here. It hasn't left. What we have to do is make sure it stays here. We have not. The black community has not left. It is still here. Our heart is still here. Our soul is here in Altadena. I live in the kind of neighborhood that if I have a lemon tree, I make lemonade and give it to my neighbor. So I live in that neighborhood, and it is still there, and we are going to be here. And I am the first black president of the Altadena Historical Society. When I joined 4 years ago, most of the history there, 99%, was all white. Even though we had Martin Luther King come up to Altadena, we have Ellen Garrison Clark buried in the Mountain View Cemetery in Altadena, the daughter of slaves. We had none of that in our archives. And I'm here to make sure that we get all that, all those hidden histories and all those things that will keep us here in Altadena and make us strong and never be forgotten.
Just as a follow-up, Veronica, we heard a little bit about this in the first panel, about the amount of resources that have been raised to support the community of Altadena. Over $55 million has been raised to support long-term recovery efforts by the Eaton fire. Folks like Pasadena Community Foundation being the recipient of those funds. GoFundMe's raised $200 million for LA fire victims, including Altadena. I've got to ask you, how has the Altadena Historical Society benefited from that? And what partners are you working with inside and outside of the region?
Okay, we have benefited from it. We have, first I want to say, I was amazed that people didn't know that black people lived in Altadena. I was like, where have you been? I've been here. We've been here. I've been here 61 years. What do you mean this is new to you and you don't know? But as a historical society usually works on a budget of about $45,000. And what it is, it archives history of Altadena. So we're an archive, not a museum. We have received over $100,000 and is specifically marked to archive Black history in Altadena. So we have been the recipient of it, and I am there to make sure that it's used to archive that Black history. We've been approached by USC and UCLA to partner with us to get that Black history in our archives. And the Altadena Historical Society is 90 years old this year. So 90 years from now, people will read about this fire. They will see the Black people. They will see our resilience in how we made it through the fire, and we're still here.
Next, I want to go to Jeffrey Buzzell over at Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. Jeffrey, it's been reported by the LA Times that LA County will set aside $3 million to help owners of fire-damaged homes test their soil for lead. We know the county is now shouldering the responsibility of contaminant testing because, as the Times has reported, the federal government has opted to break from a nearly 2-decade tradition of testing soil. Set the scene for us. Can you describe the Eaton litigation landscape right now?
Sure, thank you. I want to say first off that I echo everything that my partner Crystal has said. I'm honored to be here. I'm happy to be part of a team that's able to help this community. This area is deeply personal to me. I'm a resident of the San Gabriel Valley. My son has played baseball in that field right out there. And we've had many classmates and friends and others that have been deeply impacted by the fire and lost their homes. So we really are appreciative of the opportunity to talk, and to the extent anybody wants help, we're more than happy to help. Right now, because of the 6,600 homes that have been lost, the overall 9,000 structures that have been lost, there have been filed at this point about 200 litigations in LA Superior Court, filed by various individuals. Not class actions, as my partner said, but individual actions that have been filed to recover damages for the Eaton fire from Southern California Edison. And as we've talked about, the goal of those cases is to make sure that people in this room and other people in Altadena are made whole if possible, to recover those damages that are uninsured, to recover those emotional harms that have been done by the negligence of Southern California Edison. We've filed a number of complaints on behalf of our clients already. Our complaints, as well as some of the others, allege a number of various theories of liability. They include things like failure to shut off the power. We've talked about that. Should they have shut off the power when the lines were potentially at risk by high winds? Yes, they should have, in our view. And so what caused the fire in those winds? Well, that's still under investigation. That's part of what's going on right now. But the leading theories are one of a couple. One is that some equipment on the transmission towers up in Eaton Canyon failed. There was a flashover. Electricity went where it shouldn't, and hot molten materials fell to the ground and started a fire. The other one's a little more complicated. There's anyone who knows the Eaton transmission lines up knows there's a short little dead transmission line up there that was decommissioned many, many years ago. Unfortunately, when there are electric lines transmitting high voltages nearby, those electric lines can induce a current in a dead line, actually create electricity in a dead line. And if those towers are not properly grounded, they can cause sparks and high winds and start fires. So right now in the litigation, we're very early on. Many more complaints will be filed, but the court is right now in the process of doing what's called a coordination proceeding. All of these individual actions have been brought together in one place before one judge, and a series of orders are being put together so that it's orderly and efficient to get remediation of the wrongs as quickly as possible. Over the next, unfortunately, it will probably take years, not months, but over the next period of time, there'll be some discovery. We'll continue to investigate the issues with Southern California Edison. We'll ask them for information. We'll get more information from them. And then eventually, there will either be a trial or a mediation, which we've heard about before. And the mediation is an important part of the process if that happens. But what we'd like to do for anybody who's in this room and is interested in talking to us about it is to make sure that everyone is prepared. Crystal talked about the importance of asserting your rights, but there's naturally, for non-lawyers, there's always a fear of doing that for various reasons, one of which may be just fear of the process. And so to the extent that anybody's interested in having a discussion about what that means and what they might expect over the course of the next year or two if they decide to litigate, we're happy to answer those questions afterwards.
Just in reaction to that, I can only imagine what people are thinking and feeling, hearing you say the quiet part out loud, that this could take years, not months. And I just want to quickly go right back to Dr. Williams, our licensed marriage and family therapist. I'm processing that as you shared that. I'm sure so many people are processing that. Dr. Williams, you have a personal story of survival. Your family lost 7 homes in the fire. As you hear Jeffrey lay that out, how are you, as a trained marriage and family therapist, how are you processing that?
So as my family, myself, my two of my sisters and my mother all lost our homes. My godmother lost her home. Friends and family and the closest people to me. We are a community. So my neighbors, looking at one right here, right? I count all of those. I don't just count the ones that are blood related to me. So we as a community lost our homes. We lost our family in that unit. So as I think about it, I approach it as a person first and a professional second. So the person in me is devastated. The professional shows up every day for somebody else who is devastated. And I put myself aside, but with empathy, continue to show up for others. So to think that it's going to take years to rebuild my person, that makes me very sad. But I know that with support, we can get through that, right? So I vacillate between the two of those, and I just kind of go back and forth, where I know as a professional that there is hope and there is support, and I lend that to other people. But I first got to pick myself up, lend it, so we start inner first, and then we work outer. And you can't do it without building up this inner person to lend a hand to support someone else outside of myself and outside of my family. But it's hard to hear. And I don't want you to have to say it, but I don't want you to lie to me either, right? Because we need to know and understand the scope and the magnitude of exactly what we are facing. Because if I know it's gonna take 2 years, I'm not gonna plan for 2 months, right? I get to have the real conversation where we as a community plan 2 years out, quarter by quarter by quarter, day by day, moment by moment, second by second, so that I'm not under any misconception that this is going to happen for me in less time than what it might actually take, right? Reality. We got to live in the reality because this is it. Every day, you wake up, is this my life? Don't stay in denial because yes, it is. Don't stay in bargaining where you're praying for a miracle. If it wouldn't have happened, then this is what I would have done. It did. Be angry, but only stay there for a moment because that's a land that will trap you. And you can go into depression or you can go into anxiety. Let's all get to understanding really quickly so that we can get to coping, so that we can actually be a loss manager and manage the loss that we have incurred.
Thank you for that, Dr. Williams. And for those that are listening, for those that are just streaming, you're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. This is our special town hall. It's our town hall. It's the Altadena Eaton Fire 100 Days and Counting. People are streaming across the country and around the world. This was and continues to be one of the biggest stories happening around the world. With that, I want to go to Brandon Lamar, the president of the NAACP Pasadena chapter. Brandon, speaking of leaning into the reality, you know, I've been reading, I'm sure a lot of folks have been reading and living this reality of going back and forth between insurance companies and FEMA and the LA County Department of Public Health and California Department of Insurance, not getting the clarity that they need and sometimes feeling dejected. For our national audience, what else are we missing about the breadth and depth of this catastrophe? And considering NAACP's work on the ground in places like Flint, and places like Jackson, Mississippi, and places like Asheville, North Carolina, what lessons should our fellow Americans learn from the scope of this tragedy?
First of all, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this conversation. I think one of the things that before we actually talk about what happened, we actually have to talk about how we got here in the first place. Redlining, the displacement of Black and brown families from the 710 stub and the 210 stub, not allowing African Americans to be able to get loans from banks to buy homes in certain areas in Pasadena or on the east side of Altadena. And so I think before we have the conversation of where we are now, we have to have those conversations of systemic racism, of how we got here in the first place. Not only that, but we also have to talk about the infrastructure of how West Altadena didn't even get the notifications to evacuate in time. We also have to talk about the infrastructure of how, yes, we're talking about Edison, but also the gas company left the gas on for 3 days. So when we talk about homes on fire, homes were just not on fire, homes was actually blowing up. And I saw it with my own eyes because I drove up there every day looking at homes still ablaze as there's nothing there but a pipe and a fire. And so I think those are the things that we really have to talk about is how in the world, I'm gonna watch my language because number one, I'm an associate pastor, but then number two, we on live. So I'm gonna watch my language.
Yes, we are.
Because it's been one of those seasons. But I think number one, it's amazing to me how we ignore systemic racism in our community, and as a people, we've apologized for so much, but when will we stop apologizing for what we have paid for? Because the truth of the matter is we paid for this, right? We paid for this, and this was an area where it was the only place for us to be, right? For a very long times. And not only, everybody didn't have to pay that price, right? Some people moved up there because they actually saw people that looked just like them in the neighborhood. And so I think when I think about those things, for me, it's I have to tell the truth. But I also have to make sure that our community understands the truth and understand that at the same time, and I keep saying it, that disasters don't discriminate, recovery does. And that has been happening within our community. Recovery has been discriminating into our communities. And it didn't just stop here. You mentioned some other disasters. It's been happening throughout history. So you want to talk about where the money is? We can trace the money all day long and everything like that. I was on a panel, I'll make this quick. I was on a panel with mayors, the African-American mayors across the United States, and we were talking about disasters and all these big time names, Wells Fargo and all these, any big time company you could think of, Amazon, all these people were in the room talking about how many millions of dollars that they're getting. And when the mic came to me, I said, thank you. But I can't congratulate you because we ain't seen it. We have not seen it. If we continue to put people, literally, Ash, who was just up here, she's being nice, y'all. But Ash actually been driving through Altadena finding families that are living in tents on their lots and calling me saying, Brandon, we got to get them housed. In tents on their lots. This is what's happening in our community. And the truth of the matter is, if we don't keep the spotlight here, it's going to be ignored. It will be ignored, and we will have to repeat history. But as long as Brandon has breath in his body, it's not happening. So hopefully I answered your question, but sometimes I go on a rant.
Yo, you did all right. You more than answered the question.
My family has been here for a very long time. My grandparents started their church in Altadena. I went to Edison Elementary, Elliott, and so when I get goosebumps and I start talking, because I actually knew all of my neighbors and they know my name and I couldn't do no wrong because they knew my grandparents were pastors. And when I actually have to think about that, that probably won't be so anymore. Because the truth of the matter is, we're saying Altadena is not for sale, but guess what? It's selling every day. And it's not being sold by people locally. International buyers are coming into our community, taking up our land. So what are we doing about it? You talk about legislation? Let's talk about legislation from stopping international buyers and corporate people from buying up land and property in Altadena. And not only that, but let's talk about these undercover wolves that are not from our community, that don't have corporations, but they buying up land as well. So that's another one of my rants. I'm gonna be quiet. Sorry, y'all.
No, I mean, let's give Brandon a hand. I caught it, Brandon. I mean, just as you were sharing that, I'm thinking, you know, how much have we heard about this sale of TikTok? And this fear that, oh, we're going to sell TikTok. TikTok has to be sold to an American company, right? Because it can't be held in the hand of the Chinese, right? But yet and still, we allow real estate to be purchased. Lots of real estate to be purchased by foreign buyers, right? Make it make sense. Make it make sense. James Farr, host of Conversation Live on KBLA Talk 1580, Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific, Sundays at 12 noon. Conversations Live, Altadena Rising. You have been on the ground here from the very beginning. For our audience that's just sort of tuning in or coming up for air, what's the most important thing you want folks to know right now, 100 days out from this tragedy? You've been talking to a lot of people, sorting out a lot of information, separating the fact from the fiction. What's that one thing that's just not quite translating that you want our audience to know?
The one thing that I really want them to know, Doc, is that there is not a picture, there's not a video, there's nothing that anyone can tell you until you've actually been on the ground and you've stood in the steps of where someone's home. I recall going early out and I saw a bucket of water and a soda pop, right? And all I could imagine was that homeowner's last defense. That was the last stand that they could make. And then understanding how that fire tracked from east to west and understanding the wind tunnels that kind of sucked it to the west and then actually processing the guilt of why didn't my neighborhood burn also. I want people to know that this community is one of the best GD communities that I can think of. I can say that, can't I, Tavis? Okay. That people love each other here, right? I see so many faces here that have allowed my wife and I and our children to be nurtured and groomed and raised and cultivated and chastised. And, you know, I feel like sometimes I am an immigrant here, right? Like I have to fill out a visa form every year because somebody from this community gonna press me on my credentials. And I hope that I show up each time to get my stamp to say that I am here with you, I love you. And to answer your question, Doc, that's Altadena, that's Pasadena. They love hard, they fight even harder. Very tribal, but if you ain't like us, keep it pushing.
Veronica Jones, president of the Altadena Historical Society, you look like you wanted to add something to that.
No, I was just amen. Amen to everything he was saying.
That's Auntie
Because,
Veronica.
yeah, we are going to be here, and we aren't going anywhere. And we want people here, and we need to have this kind of thing 100 years from now. I mean, excuse me, it's the 100th day of the event. So we need it the 200th day, we need it the 2-year event, we need the 3-year event, and I want to be here on the 5-year event also, because it needs to stay in the eyes of the news, in the media, and with our legislators. We need to have Altadena stamped right there on their desk every day.
Agreed, agreed. I want to switch gears a little bit and go to Jeffrey over at Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers. Jeffrey, on Tuesday, the board voted 4-0 to direct $3 million from the county's budget to test residential properties that are both downwind and within 1 mile of the Eaton burn boundary. Talk to us about whether or not this may be too little too late. For folks who may be looking for legal remedies, talk to us about the mediation process and other legal remedies that folks in the community might be considering.
Yes, so as you heard Crystal talk about earlier, part of the process and part of the reason why we're here and you know, all the information that's been disseminated here today and all the speakers just makes it clear that part of this process has to be for each and every one of you in this community to be able to tell your story, to make, in this case, Edison understand what it is that their actions have done. And I mentioned earlier that at the end of the litigation process is typically one of two things. It's typically a trial or a mediation. And we're all familiar, I think, with trials from personal experience or television. As Crystal said, you know, we're a firm of over 1,000 lawyers that do exclusively trial-related work. So to the extent that we get to the point where we need to tell your story, we have been telling stories in trials every day of every year for 20 years, 30 years. And we would be honored to be able to tell your story in a trial if that is necessary. Most likely what happens in these cases, however, is that the cases will go to something called a mediation, which is not a trial, but it's an attempt to resolve the claims. And again, Crystal touched on this a little bit, but part of what we do in representing you is making sure that we have a personalized team that understands each and every one of your individualized stories and puts together a package of information that will go to the other side, go to Southern California Edison and say, hey, look, this is what it is that you did to these people, and here is what they believe is appropriate remedy for those wrongs. Then we will sit in a room with them at some point, and you will get to sit across from a Southern California Edison representative and their lawyers, and you will get to tell your story. And at the end of that process, you know, us or any other lawyer you choose will get to argue with them for what you believe you're entitled to. And so even though that process may be a little ways off, we should be thinking about how we're going to be doing that now, right? The stories in this room are almost endless, and each one of you deserves to be able to tell that Excuse me. And so as you go through this process, one of the important things I think we need to think about is making sure that we don't forget. We need to remember what it is that the fire has done to us and make sure that we're cataloging all of the work and all of the emotion that we've been through in dealing with these fires, so that when we get to that mediation process or that trial, we can most effectively tell your story.
Jeffrey, just as a follow-up, and I'm hearing you say loud and clear that it's a good idea for us to document everything. To document everything, and that's what the Altadena Historical Society is doing and will continue to do. I was just reading in the LA Times that lead is a heavy metal that's linked to some pretty serious health problems, including damage to the brain, damage to the nervous system, the digestive system, reproductive, cardiovascular issues. And that's according to the Environmental Protection Agency. And so in terms of what it takes to document, I'm hearing you say we should document, not just the condition of our homes, but we should also be documenting our health, no?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, to the extent that you see any changes, I mean, changes are inevitable, obviously, and I'm glad we have therapists who are available to help and medical professionals who are available to help. Unfortunately, those are not my specialty, but to the extent that those changes happen in your lives, it is definitely important to document the impacts on you from the loss of your cherished possessions, the loss of your feelings of security, the loss of your homes, the loss of any, your health, your mental well-being. All of that has the possibility to be resolved and compensated in the litigation. Unfortunately, me and a judge and lots of other lawyers can't undo what's happened. And that's unfortunate, and I wish we could. And the best we can do in this situation is to try to find an amount of money that will make you feel like you've been heard and that what you've been through has now been compensated. And so yes, as you go through the process of dealing with the rebuild and dealing with the damage to your properties and your lives, make sure that you do keep records of what it is that is happening to you, so that when you get to that day where you get to tell your story, you have that information and it's not lost because it's been a passage of time.
Dr. Williams, as somebody who documents folks' growth and conditions, talk to us about just some really easy ways, very practical ways that folks can document these sorts of things, because we're talking about folks who've lost everything. People who've lost computers, people who've lost files, people who are overwhelmed by just the idea that I need to document another thing. And so make it a little easier for us to wrap our arms around this.
So I think with technology, we have those devices in our hand, and most of us don't go anywhere without it, right? You would be late to work trying to go back to get the phone, and you're gonna have one on your desk when you get to work. But you need one in your hand while you're driving to listen to your music or to listen to this. Do a video diary. Film yourself, film somebody. If you're uncomfortable, get somebody to say what you want to say and put it on film. Take pictures and make sure that you archive those pictures. They'll have the date timestamp. They'll have all of those things. If you need to print them out because you need something to hold on to, because that's your last photo album. I lost all mine too. But being able to do that, right? So you want to be able to, even a picture's worth 1,000 words, it's said a long time ago, believe it now, so that you can see it and be meticulous about, you can't take too many. So if you're a writer, journal, write it down, write the thoughts and feelings, write about, right, the devastation and you not being able to sleep night after night, write how many times you had to go to the doctor. Go get your super bill from the doctor, request, can I have a listing of how many times I've been here? You can request the documents from your mental health professional so that they can document that. Don't be afraid to say exactly how it is that you feel when you sit in that chair. And I know that it is intimidating to sit across from somebody and tell them the things that are going to make you cry. and to tell them of the ill and the hurt that you feel like has been done to you, but nobody can speak it for you. So get brave and speak your truth. Speak all of that, because somebody has to, a mental health professional has to write it down for you. And you say, make sure you, when you write your notes, you put that in there, right? And have them put it in quotes about what the patient said, what the client said, what the individual person sitting across from me said, so that that can be a living document about your experience. There was a last question, and it was talking about the lead and the asbestos and things that are found and how you document about that. We talk a lot about people that lost their homes. We don't talk about the lucky losers, right? Those individuals whose homes didn't burn, and now they have to go back to a place where they no longer have their community. Of a family member that the insurance company rushed her back in her home because they said they would not pay. They said all of these things. She went there, got it cleaned, spent all this money, and as of yesterday, because they didn't do the proper testing to test for the asbestos, to test for lead, she's now out of her home for another 3 months after she just got settled again. So when we think about what needs to happen, it's for everybody. It's everybody that incurred a loss. And just because your home is still standing does not mean you are not lost and that you didn't incur a loss. So make sure we're thinking about everybody. And I can't think and understand mentally what it takes to drive into Altadena every day and how scary it is to close your door and be the only house on the block. Please call and check on those people. Drive by, check in with them. Because if you're the only house on the block, right, you almost think that you're the only one thinking about the fact that you're still there, because everybody is elsewhere. So we got to tap in.
By show of hands, how many folks here are the quote-unquote lucky losers? The lucky losers, all right? It's maybe about 20% of the room, lucky losers.
Well, let me define it, right? Because people are confused. There's no such thing as a lucky loser. But you're lucky that you have your house, but you're still lost a lot.
Yeah. Or not so lucky. There's something you wanted to say?
I'm good.
It's just an amen?
Amen.
All right. I want to go back to Brandon Lamar, the president of NAACP Pasadena chapter. Speaking of soil testing, it's been reported that without adequate soil testing, contaminants caused by the fire, they remain undetected. They pose this risk to residents. We've heard it here. Failing to identify and remedy these fire-related contaminants may expose individuals to residual substances during the rebuilding. It may potentially jeopardize groundwater. And we have heard this story before. How should the people of Altadena and how should our fellow Americans interpret the federal government's break from 2 decades of tradition testing the soil, and how is NAACP meeting the moment?
So two words that I love is resistance and agitate. Here's what I mean by that. We just went through a fire, and I see distribution going on in Altadena. I see relief centers going on in Altadena. I see the county setting up shop in Altadena. The county is getting ready to open up Loma Alta Park again for youth to go up there. But also what I see is homes that debris still is sitting on. And one thing that I think we have to start doing is we have to look beyond what we can see and start looking at what our health will look like in the next 5 years. We're gonna start seeing young people with cancer at a young age, higher rates, because you know why? They're trying to clear out our schools so that our students, those schools can rebuild so our students can go back to those schools, so that our homes can be still there or rebuilt there. But I think one of the biggest things that we can do when we talk about the rebuild process is we have to not only test soil, but we have to make sure that we change out that soil. But it's amazing how we are having these conversations here, and soil testing has stopped from the county level on our end, but it hasn't in Palisades.
Can you say that again for the people in the back?
Absolutely. So it has stopped here on the county level. But I literally just spoke to a woman who is doing relief in Palisades, and the county and their city is actually testing the soil in Palisades. Not only that, but the streets are still blocked off in Palisades. Yesterday we had a report from the sheriff, and the sheriff told us here that they arrested 20 people last week from looting in Altadena. Why is that not happening in the Palisades? So, and I hate to compare, but there's a comparison there because our community has lost as well. And let me compare even bigger. It took Palisades 3 days to cover 10,000 acres. It took Altadena less than 4 hours to cover 10,000 acres. So I think what we have to do is agitate and resist when it comes to our local and county and state officials, when it comes to us showing up to meetings, because guess what? When it's time for us to show up, we don't show up, which is why Pasadena has went from 21% African Americans to now we're going lower than 6%, because you know why? We don't show up. When they making laws and talking about stuff and talking about agenda items that has us in their mind, on their mind, we do not show up. When you talk about our county board of supervisors, we don't show up. But we wonder why the population, let me tell you, the only population in Pasadena that has gone down is the African American population. So we need to agitate. And we need to start stepping up and show up and make sure, even if we have to rent buses and put people on them buses to show up, we have to show up, because that's how we're going to get that change to happen. You know why they're showing up in Palisades? Because they show up. They're going to call. It's not just about the money, but it's about you walking in there and say, we need in by numbers. Because you know what's greater than money? A vote. And that's what we have the power to do. If you don't have 50 cents, guess what you have? A vote. And that is what's going to change our community. So you want to talk about the lead and stuff that's happening? We need our community, we need our local officials, our county officials, our state and federal officials to take our health serious. Because if we don't, you talking about the rebuild process, in the next 5 years, half of us won't be here if we continue the rate that we're going on and breathing up. I got asthma, and I feel it every single time I go up there. I got a friend who goes up there to check his parents' house, and he gets sick every time he goes up there. This is the conversations that we really have to start having.
Thank you for that. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580. This is our town hall here. 100 days and counting since the tragedy here in Altadena, and we are here with the people. Make no mistake about it. We are here with the people. There may be some people after this town hall going to another meeting. I read that the city council and that the LA County Supervisor Barger, are holding a joint meeting on the Eaton fire recovery, on the Olympics, on housing. Jeffrey, in our remaining moments, I want to ask you to kick off this next round. What's next for survivors? What's next for wildfire survivors? And what's missing from the agenda for this joint meeting about the Eaton fire that's taking place in about 15 minutes?
That's an excellent question. One of the things that I want to make sure that I stress as the lawyer who's bringing claims against SCE is that I think what's next for Eaton survivors here is this, right? Like meetings like this, coming together like this, standing with each other, supporting each other, and really taking care of you first. I know that there were a lot of lawyers in the area. I've heard stories of people driving streets right after the fire and handing business cards to people who were combing through the rubble, or accosting people in supermarkets. And those stories raise my hackles. I can't even fathom. The litigation, as I said, will take some time. It should not be an added stressor to anybody. We're here to help when you're ready, but you should be taking care of all of this first. Figure out your insurance situation. If you need to help with that, you can get an independent adjuster to help you, or you can talk to a law firm that you've hired to answer some questions. Talk to a therapist. You know, do the things that you need to do in order to take care of what you need to take care of, and figure out the litigation piece later. If you're the type of person that needs to get that stress off your chest and hire somebody so that you know someone's watching out for you, then by all means do it right away. If you're not, don't add more to your plate. As far as the meeting that's going on, I think, you know, I welcome the thoughts of other people on the panel, but it seems to me that this conversation is what's missing from that meeting.
Thank you for that. So in our remaining minutes, this is the lightning round, because we are live on the air right now, and we have a few more items we want to share with you. But quickly, if you give us about 60 seconds each, for many African Americans who built their lives, who built their businesses in historically black communities like Altadena, the combined loss of generational wealth and personal heirlooms is indescribable. Talk to us about what is feeding your worst fear and your wildest imagination about the future of Altadena, future of Eaton Canyon 100 days after. Veronica?
Okay, what I wake up every day thinking is that, what if we don't come back? What if I lose my community? I live on a street where most of the homes are there, but half the people are not there. What if they don't come back? I mean, that would be one of my worst nightmares. And another part I realize is, if we build back the same, we can't build back the same. We have to build back better. We have to be more fire resistant. We have to be more proactive in what we let our federal officials do in our communities. We have smaller parks on the west side. We have a smaller library. We have less trees. We have more electrical wires going through our neighborhoods. We can't let that happen. We can't. That's what got us here. So I just hope that as we build, that we do build back, and that as we build back, we make it better, and we hold those accountable that build those things, those organizations, SCE and the Board of Supervisors, hold them accountable to build our neighborhoods the same way they're built on the east side of Altadena.
Thank you for that. Dr. Williams?
I want to first start off by saying we can't fuel our fear. No, we can't fuel our fear. That's deficit-based, right? So as we live strength-based, hopefully we are fueling our hope. We are fueling our faith, because that's what we want to grow. We want that to be consumed like wildfire, so that we can do and feel better about who we are, what we have to walk into, and the promise, right? Everything that fire destroys is not bad, right? So we actually get to look for the silver lining. What is this? I was a renter, and we had that conversation a little earlier. I was a renter and closed escrow last Monday on the house that I rented for 17 years. There is hope. right? We have to be able to find it. Organizations like Green Line, organizations like Neighborhood Housing Services, they are out there. We have to find them. We have to connect. So and I guess if there was a fear, and I'm not living in that, is that everybody that experiences fire that has been impacted, whether you watch it on TV or whether you hear and know somebody or you are that somebody, that you would stop feeling a range of emotions. And the only thing that you would live in is sadness or anxiety or what we like to go deeper and call depression, right? Feel a range of emotions. There's still something to be happy about. If you're sitting here listening to me and I'm looking at you, you made it out. Right? Feel a range of emotions. When you are happy, be happy, because the sadness will come back. But really sit in that, right? And allow yourself to feel some kind of joy.
Brandon Lamar, NAACP Pasadena chapter president. What's feeding your worst fear, your wildest imagination?
I wake up with hope because we're continuously moving and trying to serve our people. I started the Dena Relief Drive, and the Dena Relief Drive has been the longest drive and assistance that has happened within our community since the day of the fire, and we're still moving. So I have hope. I have faith. But beyond that, it's not a fear, but it is if we don't move, then inevitable will happen. And here's what I mean by that. Governor Newsom passed an executive order for $2.5 billion for our community, but none of that money goes to helping families rebuild. It's all going to the salaries of the firemen and all the workers that have put in their time to cut out the fire. Not a dime of that money is going to us. Those are the questions that we have to start asking while we're smiling in front of these cameras and taking pictures and all this kind of stuff. We have to advocate for our community, because if we don't advocate, there will be no community for us to advocate for. So it's not a fear. It's a what if.
Thank you, Brandon.
So thank you again for allowing us to be here.
Thank you. We are live. I have a couple more minutes. Jeffrey, what's feeding your worst fear and your wildest imagination? About a minute.
I'm not sure I have much to add to what my esteemed panelists have added. I would say amen to all of that. I guess from my perspective, I think it's really about making sure that there's not a feeling of helplessness and hopelessness. My biggest fear is that people will stagnate and not do what they need to do to recover because of that overwhelming feeling of not having support. And it's wonderful to see this whole town hall come out and all the panelists and all the support that's available, because it gives me hope.
Thank you. And James Farr, the host of Conversations Live, Altadena Rising, in 30 seconds.
Doc, you know I know this clock better than anybody else up here, but what I will say is what we have not, and dead air does not work on radio, but we have to pay homage and honor the 18 that lost their lives in this fire. We talked a lot about the lucky losers, right? But let's not forget about those who have lost their lives. And then lastly, I'm so excited to announce that the Altadena Historical Society will be archiving this program and every episode of the Conversation Live Altadena Rising, so that it will not be forgotten and available for study and research for generations to come forward. Thank you, Doc.
Thank you for that. And thank you to Quinn Emanuel Trial Lawyers for helping sponsor this event. Want to bring back up Tavis Smiley to wrap us up, but I want to thank you. I'm Dr. Nicordelai Corte, host of A More Perfect Union on KBLA Talk 1580, weekdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific.
One more time for Dr. Nicordelai Corte. Y'all can do better than that. Come on, Dr. Corte. One more time for Dominique DePrima. And one more time for all of these panelists. The first panel. Come on, y'all, give them some love. The first panel, the second panel.
Thank you.
You've heard it said, just a couple minutes, 2 minutes left here before we wrap this live to the nation and to the world. You've heard it said a few times tonight, and I want to just make sure I underscore it one more again, as we say, that we are pleased at KBLA Talk 1580 to have the show of record. So we can't do town halls like this every week, but we can have a program every week that records and tracks and chronicles your resilience and this rebuild. We are honored to have James Farr as the host of this program. Again, Conversation Live, Altadena Rising every Saturday at 10 a.m., every Sunday at 12 p.m. A repeat. Please thank James Farr once again for hosting that conversation. This was a recent development, but I'm so pleased that James had a chance to announce it. We are delighted, Ms. Veronica, that your institution is going to chronicle not just this town hall. I thank God for all these cameras in the back and all the TV networks that came out to cover this today, the local networks. So I'm delighted to know that this conversation, and every week on Conversation Live, Altadena Rising will be chronicled at the Historical Society so that years from now, when this Wakanda gets rebuilt, that folk will know that there was a black talk station that was on the front lines making sure that your stories were being told and that your voices were being heard, that your stories and voices indeed were being amplified. Finally, I want to thank once again Quinn Emanuel trial lawyers. As you've heard a few times today, there are all kinds of lawyers running here and there, making their case as they will. Some of them wolf in sheep's clothing, no question about that. But at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't partner with anybody until we've done our due diligence on who we're partnering with. So please thank Quinn Emanuel trial lawyers once again for joining with us today to sponsor this town hall. Crystal and Jeffrey, we thank you. Finally, when we wrap here in just a second, to my left, there's a KBLA table. That's where you can check in for the gift cards. These gift cards are intended, these $100 gift cards for all the grocery stores in this area are intended for the survivors. So please check this table to the left for those gift cards. I also believe that the air purifiers will be distributed to my left as well. To my right is the kitchen and all the food. We got enough food for everybody for our reception. So those are the housekeeping items. And on the table to my left, there are KBLA climate bags. Thank you, Jeff, for holding that up. Those bags are yours to take with you as our gift from KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you for coming out today. God bless you. Get home safely. You're listening to KBLA Talk 1580.
Of course I do. Of course I do. My dad was a Catholic, so you know. Yes.
Storms damaging winds and hail with tornadoes possibly on Sunday.